Hello, and welcome to GameRomp Easy Mode, a chill video game podcast where I hang out with my wife,
Deanna.
Oh, and I'm David.
We'll get this intro someday.
Yeah. Anyway, David and Deanna, husband and wife, chatting about video games.
And trying to be relaxed about it.
Yeah, it's been a week. Last time we talked about Mario, huh? The Mario movie.
Oh, yeah.
And this time, well,
we actually got replies about that, so that was nice.
Yeah.
So thank you for the comments on YouTube.
So this week, I guess we could start off. I've seen you've been playing...
Yes.
Dicey Dungeon.
Yes, I've been playing Dicey Dungeon. I think you suggested it, didn't you?
Maybe. I mean, I've played it.
I know I've had it installed before, but I think this time I installed it, and I feel... I don't know. I think maybe you said I should play it at some point, so I've started playing it, and it's good. I mean, I haven't gotten through, like, too much of it yet. There's many episodes to go through, and I think it's, like, what, 5 or 6 different characters?
Yeah.
And, like, one hidden one I haven't unlocked yet.
So, to give a brief overview, it's basically, I guess you would call it a roguelike.
Yeah, because you have to restart.
Yeah, you pick a character and you go through a couple of stages, beat a boss. Each run is different with different enemies and different potential upgrades to your character. You control little cartoon dice characters, and they are trapped, I guess, is it hell?
I don't know if it's necessarily hell, but they are certainly trapped somewhere. And I think a few of the quote-unquote monster characters in the dungeons mention something about eternity. I'm not sure if
it's like a game show hell, except instead of a devil, it's like this sorceress lady.
Yeah, she calls herself Lady Luck, but that's clearly, like, I feel like the whole story of it is that she's clearly not Lady Luck. She's very much the opposite.
It's rigged in her favor.
Yeah.
But anyway, yeah, you choose, like, one of 5 characters, and, like, one's, what is it, fighter or warrior?
I mean, same thing.
Sword and shield dude.
Warrior, yeah.
It's like the most basic. Then you got like the thief who steals abilities and
and supposedly like their difficulty. It says like the warrior's the first character you start with and play tutorial stuff, and the warrior's like 1 star.
Yeah, it's the most basic play mode.
Yeah, then you unlock the thief and it's like, oh, the difficulty is 2 stars. Which it's interesting because they each go up 1 star, but out of all 5 or 6 characters that I've played, the hardest one, or at least at the beginning, I guess, was the thief, even though he's only 2 stars.
It's different because, like, it has, like, the difficulty, but I think it's more of, like, how complex their mechanics are versus the difficulty of the run. Because, okay, again, the warrior is, like, the most basic guy. You get cards, you play the cards. The thief has a little gimmick where he can steal. The robot has, like, that math gimmick where you have to like fill up a bar.
The CPU.
Then like the engineer or inventor,
I think it's inventor,
has like little gadgets which are just like they're like cards that are just there always and you can switch them out.
Inventor was interesting because I really enjoyed the play style, but the thing to me that makes it hard with the inventor is the fact that after you win each battle, you have to get quote-unquote rid of something. Now, you don't actually get rid... You have to choose one of your weapons that you're holding, that you got used to using, and you have to turn it into something else.
Yeah.
So it's like not necessarily getting rid of the weapon, you're reusing it or repurposing... Recycling it into something else.
Yeah. Anyway, also, and the last character before we get into the mechanics was the witch or mage.
I think she's the witch. I think she's the last one before the secret character, I guess.
I don't remember the secret character, but okay. So the witch, her thing was, she has like a spell book, and you have to play around the spell book.
Yeah, I thought that was. I think the mechanics of all of them are interesting.
Yeah, and that's where the difficulty comes in, because like at the end of the day, you're facing the same enemies. And the cards that they each get are kind of balanced, so even though you have to use more dice with the witch, like a lot of them will return dice or stuff like that. So I want to say it's complicated, but not complicated at the same time. It's easy to get your head around once you start playing it.
I think it's one of those games where it's easy to understand, but hard to master. And yeah, I did pretty good with the warrior, and I went through, I think I've gone through 3 of the episodes, and I think there's 6 episodes for each character.
The episodes get progressively harder. That's where the difficulty lies, in my opinion.
Yeah, and there's depending on the episode, you know, some of the later episodes are like, oh, the enemies have, I don't know if it was like 10% more HP.
Yeah.
And all their equipment is already leveled up and stuff like that.
Yeah, and there's sometimes an effect where, like, status effects are different. Have you run into that yet?
I don't think I've run into that yet, but I'm sure I will at some point.
Okay, so there's status effects. Like, you can imagine, like, poison, burn, I think electrocuted or shocked, freeze, and there might be a few other ones too.
Now, the interesting thing is with the poison works exactly how you would think, like if you had played Pokemon.
But better.
I guess.
In my opinion.
Depending on which side of the poison you're on, I suppose.
Poison builds in this game are really good, because, like, okay, so in a normal game, like Pokemon, you get poisoned, you lose, like, what, 5 or 10% each turn, right? But in Dicey Dungeons, there's, like, a poison counter. So, like, if you have 1 poison counter, you take 1 damage of poison, and it'll go away. If you have 3, it'll do 3 damage of poison, and then the next turn it'll do 2 damage, and then the next turn it'll do 1.
Oh, is that how it works?
Yes. So,
see, I was thinking...
if you stack poison, it gets crazy, because, like, if you stack, like, 7 poison, the next turn, they're going to take 7 poison of damage. And then the next turn after that, they'll take 6. And you can refresh it. So if they're on 3 poison and you use a poison move again, you can get that higher. And then the next turn, they'll take even more poison damage. So it stacks. It's really good.
Oh, damn. Okay. In that case, I guess that would be... I don't know. Somehow I missed it. I thought poison was just... if they put 5 stacks on you, it'll take 1 point away for each attack. Or at least each stage.
Each turn.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I was thinking, oh, there's 5 stacks of poison on me, but it's just going to be like the next attack takes off 1 point and then it goes down, and then the next one takes off 1 point and goes down. No. I didn't realize it was taking 5 points.
Yeah.
Holy shit. Okay.
So some of the enemies, I think, like, one of the enemies is, like, Rat King.
Yeah.
He does a lot of poison damage, and if he stacks high poison, you're going to be taking a lot of poison damage. And like, for some of the enemies, if you're using poison, like, the fights will end real fast. Like, if you stack 4 poison on something, you probably won't see it tick to 4, then 3, then 2, then 1. But, like, for bosses, or if it's on you, it can be pretty annoying.
Yeah, was it the Dryad or someone has it where they'll stack poison and then they have an attack or a special that will, like, triple it?
Yeah.
That is so, like,
and that's where that comes really... It's such a cool mechanic. And some of the characters, like the thief, because they can steal the enemy's abilities and use stuff like that.
Oh yeah, I actually just did this on my thief this morning when I was playing, and it was a new mechanic for me, so I didn't realize, stealing things. So the first thing I stole, because it was easy, was like the plasma gun, I think from the Space Marine. And that one's okay, but it's like you have to put in 20 points in order to hit for 10 points. So it's like not super great. And then I'm like, I'll wait a while for the next one. And then, of course, I can look at the enemy's moves and see, like, oh, do they have anything I actually want to steal or not? So I waited until the wizard. Holy shit, the wizard has really good stuff. Because I went for the freeze attack. Now, this little attack can only take a 1 die. But I'm a thief, and I can, like, cut down my dies.
Yeah. So, like, turn a 3 into a 2 and a 1?
Yes.
Yeah.
So I'll always almost guaranteed to get a 1 die.
Yeah, it's easier.
But, okay, so the 1 die, you do 5 damage for 1, which is great. And also freeze a die, right? Which means that their highest level die, if they, like...
When the enemy rolls dice, if one of them gets afflicted by freeze, it turns into a 1.
Yeah, I think it always afflicts the highest level die.
Really? I think it's just, like, the first... It's, like, in order.
No, that's for burn.
Oh.
So burn, blind, and lock go from order of first die. Freeze will take the highest level die and turn it into a 1.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So that's great from the beginning, right? Mm-hmm. However, if you upgrade the freeze, it still does, I think, 5 damage, but it freezes all their die. So all of their dies will always be a 1.
That's usually good.
Yeah. I mean, okay, they're... probably be an enemy, like, I guess for my thief, ones are actually pretty decent.
Yeah, that's the thing. That's the interesting thing about this game. The dice, you think, 6s are always good, but, like, some of the abilities require specific numbers.
Specific numbers, or a minimum number, or a maximum number.
Or evens or odds, yeah.
Stuff like that. So, yeah, 6s are not always good, 1s are not always bad. But it was interesting because after I beat the wizard and I took his freeze and then I upgraded that, and that was like amazing. Then I went on to, I forgot what the next character, but I froze all his dice every time, but he needed even dice to do anything. Oh my god, I beat his ass so hard. But yes, that was amazing. So I'm actually liking this. The only thing I don't like is that the special attack for the thief, like in the first round or the first episode, your special is like rolling an extra 4 1 dies. But this one, the special is now, I think, hook, so you can use an attack twice with that special. And I guess that's okay, but I really, really liked the 1 die.
Yeah.
Because you get the P shot, and like there's a maximum that you can use of 3. And even if you upgrade it, I think the maximum stays at 3. So you can just get a whole bunch of 1s and just do like damage.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I thought that was pretty good.
Yeah, that's the fun thing about it. Like, again, sometimes if people don't know what the game is, like, it's cartoony and silly, and like the dice themselves, like you're controlling a little dice dude, and then you use dice to fit into your cards, and they'll be themed according to the class. So like the fighter will have a lot of like shield bash or whatever, and like the thief will have steel, etc., or ray gun for the inventor. And like, yeah, some of the dice you need it to be certain numbers, so it's like it's not always like you're not always just hoping for 6s. Every playthrough you'll be like looking for different numbers that you really want.
Yeah.
And because every stage gives you a different upgrade or a new card to use, it's fun to do a quick playthrough, because they're not that long. Each playthrough is like what, like half hour at most, 20 minutes maybe.
And that's assuming you get all the way to the boss.
Yeah. Maybe this is what you meant by the secret character. But talking about the thief, one of the fun things you can do is...
Did you steal the thing to turn into a bear?
Yeah, the bear.
I actually wrote that down. The bear die. It was like, it's really good art, and the little bear character.
It completely changes your class, basically. So there's a character called an alchemist, one of the enemies, and the alchemist has a bunch of little cards, and each card is like a different attack or whatever. And when they roll their dice, they're filling up their alchemy, and they'll take their potions, and some of them are just like, oh, this is gonna deal damage and shock or deal damage and freeze. But I think their last one that they take, if you let them get that far, is a potion that turns them into a bear. And that makes them a lot harder, so hopefully you beat them before that happens. But as a thief, you can steal that and you can turn into a bear, and for the rest of that playthrough you're just a bear.
And it's a bear die.
Yeah,
so little... it's like die shaped. It's just a square bear.
Yeah.
Yeah, I actually just did that this morning, and I was
wow.
like, oh my god, this is amazing. The only problem with the bear class, if you will, is that at least I didn't get to find any healing things. So I only made it so far, and then I finally ran out of HP.
Oh.
But next time, I think... Because that was another thing. So the warrior, I had no problem because it's like the beginner class.
Yeah, it's
and
pretty basic.
Surprisingly, I didn't really have too many problems with any other one. The one I had an issue with was the thief, which is weird because it's only, again, the 2-star. So I think I finally learned that with the thief, yes, you can find some weapons abilities about like healing and stuff, but it seemed to work the best when I just went in there and just clobbered them straight. I think because it took slightly more thinking to figure out, okay, I just need to get all my dice to at least 3 or lower in the beginning so that I can use, I forget if it's not the pea shooter, because that takes a total of 5 and only does like 2 damage. But once I figured out how to like really cut them down quickly, and then I wasn't losing nearly as much health.
Yeah.
Where I guess like maybe with the warrior, I was taking a little bit longer. I was building up more shield.
Yeah, because the warrior has like healing and block mechanics where like you can build armor.
Yeah, so once I learned I would just do as much damage as quickly as possible, it wasn't as bad.
Yeah. I think the thief was one of my favorite characters. Maybe the inventor?
How far back did you play this game?
Oof. I don't remember how long ago. It was a long time ago. I don't know if they've been having updates or not, but yeah, it was a long time ago. Maybe there's new updates. I know when I played it, there was a bunch of stages I never finished because, like you said, after you beat the final boss of each run, it unlocks the next level, I guess, for that character. And some of those get really hard.
Yeah.
So I never like totally finished it in the sense of like beating every level. I figured I didn't really have the drive to. It was like, well, this was fun. That's good enough. I don't need to keep playing where each enemy just has a ton of HP. And
Actually, that was another mechanic that was really interesting because I tried to see how many of the episodes for the warrior I could get through.
mm-hmm.
And I think I'm kind of like stuck on the 4th episode, which is all the enemies have extra health, I believe. And they also, all their weapons are immediately upgraded, which could make things obviously very tricky.
Yeah.
But I think it was the 3rd episode where every time you level up, you lose health, like total health.
Oh, wow.
So instead of, actually trying to beat everyone in the dungeon, it's more like how few people you can beat so you keep the most health. So that was an interesting mechanic because usually, you want to level up because you upgrade your health and you completely heal.
Yeah.
And this was the opposite. You're like, no, I need to get through this as fast as possible. So that was also an interesting mechanic. I mean, I guess we'll see clearly what the other character and classes have in store.
Yeah. There's also, I don't know if there's been new classes since I've played because that's all the classes, right? We covered them all unless they've added new ones.
No, other than the secret class, that's all they have that I'm aware of.
And the secret class, do you mean the bear, or is there a new secret class?
No, so underneath the witch, there's like a silhouette of a next die, and I don't know how to unlock it. I'm assuming that like maybe you have to unlock or beat most or all of the other episodes before you get to it.
Huh, I don't remember that. Maybe that is new for me then. But there's also mods.
Really?
Yeah, and like modded classes and stuff.
I'll try my best to keep away from mods until I finish most of the game.
Well, I mean, just play it for fun. I'd be surprised if you beat the full thing of every stage because it gets hard.
I guess, but I am enjoying it.
Yeah. Just don't drive yourself crazy. I don't know. That's how I look at it. And eventually I got to the point where I'm like, well, I think I've lost like 5 runs in a row. I think I'm just done. Or whatever the number was. Because, it gets... I mean, because especially back then, it was just... The game was built in a way where, like, because you could just do infinite runs, basically. It's just harder and harder and harder. And eventually it's like, well, I've had my fun, so I'm going to move on. But yeah, I do like games like that.
Well, now that you mention mods, I'm definitely going to have to look at that.
Yeah,
because mods are fun.
Yeah. Oh, that's going to be a big subject for next week's discussion. Mods.
Oh, okay.
I'll give you a hint about that later. But anyway, so yeah, that's a little roguelike Dicey Dungeon.
Now here's a question. I know the story is not like super in depth, but do you want to talk a little bit about that? Because I have like some vague thoughts, but...
Sure, go ahead. I mean, I remember it being just kind of goofy and not important, so...
Yeah, I know. Well... Okay, so the first thing is, like, we're playing as Dai, but the silhouette is a human beforehand.
Yeah, it's like they're cursed to be dice, I guess.
I guess, but no one really seems to bother that they were turned into Dai.
I guess, yeah.
And then also the thing of, like, when you finish an episode, they spin the big wheel because it's a game show. And the Joker character is like, whatever. And then you spin it, and obviously it goes to, like, quote-unquote death every time.
Yeah, because like, think Wheel of Fortune, and like one of the prizes, they're like, oh, you're going to win a vacation or a car, but it always lands on basically imagine bankruptcy.
Yeah, so we're clearly in the bad place.
Yeah.
But I'm curious that if I did manage to beat all 5 or 6 episodes of, say, The Warrior, is that last episode actually going to give us something other than the death? Like, I'm just...
I wonder.
Yeah,
I don't know.
Curious how that's going to work. But yeah, the human turns into a Dai. They're in here, according to from other monsters for eternity. I'm wondering if the monsters that you fight, if they were also like previous players. I think some of them
are just having a good time. And some of them are... One of my favorite ones is it called Sneezy? The Sneezy Porcupine?
Yeah, the porcupine.
And like his gimmick is that he just like sneezes and shoots you with a bunch of little 1-point needles, I think.
Yeah.
Then there's Cornelius. Have you run into Cornelius?
Can you
He's like this shadow guy. His big thing is like he just has the one card, but I think it starts at like 99, so he has to roll like a bunch of dice and just keep putting dice in there, lowering the number from 99. But if he gets to 0, it just instantly kills you.
Oh damn! I don't think I've met that yet.
You can steal that card as well.
Holy shit!
But I mean.
But with a thief, you're getting mostly low numbers, so that's not.
But it's that's one of the things I really like about the thief. Like, you run into these characters with weird gimmicks, and you're like, Let me do that. Yeah.
Well, maybe it'll show up in this one, because this is the run now that I can steal things, so maybe it'll actually show up.
I watched somebody on YouTube actually steal that card from Cornelius and use it on the final boss of the run.
Yeah, holy shit.
And it takes forever because...
I would imagine.
But it's funny. It's like, well... Although there is... I don't know if you've run into this yet, but eventually some of the enemies, they have a dodge mechanic.
Oh, yeah, I've messed around with that.
So if you knock down Cornelius's number to 0 and it just gets dodged, well, then...
Oh, God. That would be horrible. One of the enemies that has the dodge mechanic is like the big loud bird or something.
Oh, yeah.
And yeah, if they put on the dodge, all I have to do is take one of my many 1 die.
Yeah.
And just hit it really easy, cheap.
Yeah.
And then that gets rid of it, and then you do the big attack. And I know that's not like a super complicated mechanic to get around, but...
It can be annoying because they can stack dodge as well, but yeah, it is handy to have low attack.
I think you could stack almost everything, huh?
Yeah. And that's the thing too, like just being able to have abilities that seem like, oh, this is a bad ability. I'm going to just focus on big, strong abilities. But sometimes you need the ones that like to use either low dice or leftover dice. I think the mage had a funny thing where like she can just throw the dice.
Yeah, she can throw any leftovers.
So if you roll like, your 3 or 4 dice for the turn and like you have one left over that you couldn't fit into anything, you could just throw it at the enemy for 1 damage, which is not great, but I think there might be cards to improve that as well.
Probably.
Oh,
I know, like...
and funny thing about the witch, speaking of her, if you have burning dice and you throw those...
Extra damage?
Yeah.
Oh shit, I never thought about that.
So yeah, there's a bunch of little neat mechanics in the game. It's really well done.
I was going to say that even with the robot character, and if you overload your CPU, obviously you set it up in the way where you might only have like 1 die left. And then if you roll and it's too much in the CPU, whatever, you just take that extra die and there's like one last like hurrah card you can use even when the CPU overloads.
Yeah.
And you just do whatever damage.
Yeah.
So that was pretty easy. Yeah, the robot was like, 3 stars comes after the thief, and somehow I had a way easier time with him.
Yeah, I mean, I think I seem to remember it being that way, but I think later on the thief, because each new stage, like the gimmick changes a little bit, so the thief really, in my opinion, it became like my favorite character.
Yeah, the stealing's fun. And now that I think about it, an ability when I go back to playing the warrior on the episode where like everyone's weapons are like automatically upgraded, gotta work on trying to find, if possible, what is it, the weaken?
Oh, weaken's good, yeah.
Yeah, the weaken would be definitely helpful in that area. Because, so weaken is a stat where it will take the card that your enemy has and, well, weaken it, basically. So if they have like 3 cards and you put 2 weaken on them, 2 of the cards will be chosen at random. And it depends on the card. Yeah. Some weaken will mean, instead of using a maximum of 4, now they can use a maximum of 3 on that card. Yeah,
it can lower the damage, or it can do... One of the more useful things is like if an attack did like 3 damage in a status, it'll just remove the status or something like that.
So it just makes the card worse.
Yeah.
But it's interesting when you have a basic card and then it gets weakened and it's like even worse than the basic. Well, yeah. I mean, obviously.
I think there's like 3 levels to it, yeah.
I'll definitely have to try and keep that in mind next time I play the warrior. So was there anything else?
Well, no.
I think that's basically it. Like
it's a cute game, great art, great music.
Yeah, the art's very good. I don't like Lady Luck's voice. It freaks me out.
She
like
has a
weirdly.
Voice?
Well,
it's got like a few like little grunts or laughs or something.
Yeah, hers. Maybe this is just me. It sounds vaguely sexual-ish. She's like, ooh, because it's like lady. It's supposed to be Lady Luck. So
I mean, it's kind of like Zelda, where everyone just has that like little noise when they talk, right?
Yeah, but some noises are weirder than others.
But yeah, Dicey Dungeon, that's why I played that other game. What was it called? Floppy Nights? Because the same artist worked on that.
Oh, I'll have to check that out too after this then.
I kind of fell off of it. I think Dicey Dungeons is better, but it was still okay. It was free on Epic. That's why I got it. But I
guess I'll have to access your account for it.
Yeah, Floppy Nights was okay. Also really good music, but Dicey Dungeon I think is just... it's just way better because it's the mechanics are more fun, and it's one of those games where it's like, oh, I can just do one run real quick. And each run feels like its own self-contained thing, whereas Floppy Nights is more like you're going on an adventure, there's more of a story, and each stage gets progressively harder, and like...
I guess I would equate it almost to Vampire Survivors in that way. Because you could do a Vampire Survivors run, and it's like, it's the roguelike type of thing. So you start from the bottom, you grow, and you get various things, and it can be random, and in this game it's random as well.
Yeah.
And yeah, it lasts for like 30 minutes. Like with Vampire Survivors, there's literally a 30-minute timer.
Yeah, it's such a smart and great little game design for quick little gameplay sessions. Because like, what other games have you played that are like that? Because I have a few that I've played. There was the one I know you played as well, Loop Hero.
Loop Hero was good.
And that one is like each run is different, but like you can build up a town, I guess.
Yeah.
Which,
like, you're trying to help other people.
Yeah, and it's like, oh, you start your run as a warrior, and like you start with nothing, and you go around the loop to get equipment, and you get skills. I think you get skills or talents, anyways. That one was good too. I mean, that game, I put a lot of hours into that game too. I think Dicey Dungeons is definitely more visually and musically appealing.
Yeah, I mean, Loop Hero is interesting because you're starting, like, the whole story. Spoilers ahead if you haven't played it yet. Loop Hero, you start from nothing because the whole, like, universe and everything supposedly has been destroyed, but you're the only thing left.
Yeah, it's more of a serious story.
Yeah, but then you go and you find other people that somehow have also survived, and they're like, wait, you have memory because everything's been wiped, so most people don't have memory of anything, and I found that game visually interesting because, well, one, pixel, and pixel art can be interesting if done correctly.
Yeah.
And I think they did really good on this.
Yeah.
But also because, and this is going to be a personal thing for me, because the surrounding gameplay area is all complete darkness, it reminds me of my dreams. Where, I don't know if I've shared this on the podcast before, but in my dreams, I can see things, and there's things around me, and I can see everything perfectly fine. But if I'm outside, if I'm not in a building, the sky is always black. Almost always. There's been like one dream I can remember where the sky was blue. And it's like, it's not always just like depressing stories. It's just, it's, you know, I've had stories of places I've grown up and I can see everything perfectly fine. It's just the sky is pitch black for some reason. I don't know. So the aesthetics of Loop Hero appealed to me because that reminds me of that, I guess.
Yeah, and you're slowly building up the world. Like, as you go through the little loop, you not only do you get equipment, but you get cards that let you build, like, or plop down mountains or forests or towns.
The mountains are always good.
And yeah, it's just, it doesn't really matter too much. I mean, for your loop, it does matter. Like, the one gameplay cycle you're in, it does matter. But, like, after you're done with that cycle, whether you beat the boss or die, the mountains, the forest, all that stuff. It all gets wiped. Yeah, so it doesn't, in the grand scheme of things, it doesn't matter. But
somehow the town you end up helping build up somehow survives the wipe.
Yeah.
Which is, you know, the whole story thing.
They did a really cool thing with the first boss. I think the first boss was the most interesting one.
I thought the art was really pretty on the first boss.
Yeah, it's like this
spacey.
It's like this little, I don't know if you want to call it a Grim Reaper guy. It's a skull-headed robe dude, and he's got like a halo. I don't know. It just balances that line of like being edgy and cool.
Really? I just thought it was pretty because, like, yeah, okay, he's a skull and ooh, skeletons are evil and stuff.
Yeah.
But his robe and just like and this is what happens when pixel art gets really done well. And it's just like this space theme to him because it seems like kind of glittery but like stars in him.
Yeah.
And it was just, wow, that was gorgeous.
Yeah, that's a pretty common, I don't know if you want to call it design trope, but it works. There's a reason it works. It looks good. So yeah, Loop Hero was another one. I don't remember if I'm sure you must have you played Hearthstone for a while too, right?
I mean, very little in the beginning, but yes,
but years and years ago when Hearthstone was still kind of the fun thing to play, they released a mode that was basically like a roguelike. And I think the first one was like basically Wrath of the Lich King.
I don't remember what expansion it played off of.
But I don't remember if that was the first one that did this or there was another one about like hunting a werewolf in the forest or something. But it's basically Warcraft characters, Warcraft humor. It's very goofy and cartoony, which I absolutely love.
Yes.
And like each time you would go through this, you'd select a run, and it's like, okay, we're gonna go fight the Lich King or this. I think you had to fight first 3 or 4 bosses before you got to the Lich King. And each time you challenge one of those bosses, you'd have to go through 8 stages before you get to the boss, right? And each stage would have different little minions. And again, it's goofy. But each time you would get like, oh, here's your base deck, but then you pick like 3 cards each time. Or not 3 cards. I think it's like 3 sets. Was it just 1 card? It's been a while. But like, it was fun because every time you played, it was different. And I think crucially, unlike the normal game, you can get crazy OP combos that like that would not make sense in a balanced PvP card game.
Yeah.
So like imagine you're playing like a Pokemon TGC card game or whatever, and like you just picked up Mew, except this Mew is like 3 times as powerful and does like crazy crap when it comes into play. It's like just breaking the balance of the game, and each time you play getting different things that break it in different ways. That kind of stuff was so fun. So I think to me, that was the first time I experienced the roguelike gameplay loop. I don't know if there was another game before that, but I'm pretty sure I would attribute it to the Hearthstone.
Now, the thing with the Hearthstone was like, because usually the main game was that you picked your deck beforehand, right?
Yeah, that was the thing. This was like a bonus game mode that they just released. But Hearthstone was like it's like any other card game. You collect cards, build your deck.
I know, but this mode sounds like basically what D&D would call as like, I think the name is draft. So,
yeah, for like Magic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I've only been to one of those in real life.
Well,
Hearthstone, that was kind of fun.
Hearthstone also has that mode where it's a draft mode, where I think it's called Arena, where you have to pay the currency to get into that mode. And basically you build a new deck each time. But these are still the regular cards that you can just get in a regular deck, right? They're not like super OP. Whereas this new mode, which I think was called Adventure Mode, had all the regular cards from the regular deck, but also unique cards that you could only get in the Adventure Mode because they were ridiculously overpowered.
Oh, okay.
And not only that, but like themed around the adventure.
Because I know like going through a draft can be tricky because, well, you're pulling random cards. So you don't know like, well, I guess I got left over with this red card, so maybe I'll start building a red deck or something. But at the end of a draft, you get to keep whatever cards you picked out. Whereas this version, you don't keep any of the cards you pulled during the game. Right?
Not in the adventure mode, no. Adventure mode was just for fun. I think the only thing you won at the end of the day was like cosmetic things, like the back of your card can have like a shiny decal, or maybe there was like a legendary card that you can win that got added to your decks. But most of the big crazy stuff, because like some of them are literally insane, like, oh, just take an extra turn, which I mean, I guess Magic has cards like that too, but basically stuff that's just completely unbalanced that you would never allow a player versus player scenario. But because you're playing it against NPCs, because they are NPCs, they're just like monsters and stuff. Like I remember one of the enemies you could fight in there was like, I forget what it was called. It was like in the woods, Dusk Woods. Is that what it was in Warcraft?
Oh, I don't remember.
South of Stormwind, there's like the spooky woods with spiders, and there's like the legend of the werewolf or something. I don't know. I don't remember the details. But
I guess in Warcraft it would be Worgen, right?
Yeah. So like there would be different. You remember? Now I'm gonna get talking to a freaking Warcraft, and I know you didn't play Alliance very much, but in Duskwood, I think that's what it was called, south of Stormwind. It's like a level 20 zone, but along the path in those woods was like this big abomination that would be walking
he was
around.
Like level 40 or something.
Yeah, and he would just wreck people, and they would drag him into towns. And he was one of the bosses in the game, in the Hearthstone adventure game. And it's like, oh, cool! It's all this stuff that you know from Warcraft, and they're remixing it into this game, and like it has different mechanics. And it's
having fun with it, yeah.
Yeah, and that was what I really liked about Hearthstone back in the game. Back in the day, they just had fun. They even ended up having like their own little stories. Like one of the characters was called Dr. Boom, and he's kind of like a play on Dr. Doom. So he's got that same kind of mask, except he's a little goblin with bombs.
Oh, jeez.
And he's just a little nobody in Warcraft. In Warcraft, he's just an elite character out in the Outlands that you can kill and then like never think about again. But they turned him into this goofy character in Hearthstone, and he's like a recurring character that pops up in the story, and it's just funny. So
Oh, is he one of the elite goblin that comes up near? I think it's like small little huts, and you have to press all the buttons or something.
I don't remember exactly what he did in Warcraft. It was in Outlands.
Yeah.
Remember that purple blasted area, like the end zone of the
Oh,
Outlands?
Outlands. I'm thinking Crossroads. Ugh,
No.
never mind.
He was in Outlands.
Okay, now I'm remembering.
But yeah, Dr. Boom in Hearthstone, basically when you play him, he summons little bombs, and the bombs are like 1/1s, but when they die, they explode and deal random damage to the enemy. I don't even remember what he does in Warcraft itself, but
Yeah, do we have to bring up Warcraft? Not that I really enjoyed Warcraft, don't get me wrong. I would, back in the day,
we can move
talk
on.
all about lore stuff and the ethics of whatever the orcs were doing and shit, but it's been well over a decade now. I don't remember shit.
It's one of those series where it's like, it was fun, but because it was such a big moneymaker, they just never let it die. And like,
it's kind of sad.
you kind of have to let your story end, otherwise it just becomes WoW, or it just goes on forever and ever and ever, and there's no satisfying solution. So the war in the World of Warcraft will never end, and that doesn't make for good storytelling. It becomes frustrating. But
And
anyway,
even before we left, one quick thing is people were getting upset that like they kept having to make bigger, badder, space monsters and stuff to fight, because they kept almost trying to put the Alliance and Horde closer together. And PvP players especially were like, I don't want this. I hate this. Like, I want to beat the shit out of the other side. Why are you doing this to us?
they cultivated that weird tension against the player base, which, I mean, okay, it kind of makes sense because of the story. Like, the Alliance and the Horde are fighting each other. But before that, before World of Warcraft, alliances were shaky and people did change allegiances. So
Yeah.
But now that everyone's like, well, the orcs always have to be with the undead no matter what, even if Sylvanas betrays everyone, blah, blah, blah.
Oh, yeah.
So, anyway, MMOs are crazy in that way. A lot of games are crazy. The games that try to be forever games are crazy.
The live service games, yeah.
Yeah.
And we've seen how many of those have crashed and burned over the years.
They got to be able to be like, okay, we're done with this, we're gonna move on to a new thing, which we thought they were gonna do with Overwatch, but then Overwatch turned into something else.
What, Overwatch 2?
Well, before Overwatch was a thing, Blizzard was like, there was rumors that they were gonna make a new MMO and it was gonna be sci-fi, but then like Overwatch came out and there, people assumed that like, well, the MMO thing was too hard, so we're just gonna make a multiplayer shooter.
They should have just made a cartoon or a movie or something, because I would have watched the hell out of that, but I have no interest in playing that, even before it went to hell.
Yeah, I mean, Overwatch is another thing where it's like, I really like a lot of the characters and the designs, but I just have no interest in a forever a forever PvP game. I don't like PvP games because, like, you have these stories of like Tracer is fighting this Widowmaker and like they're enemies, they're on different sides. And she's this, maybe Tracer's on the same side as the robot monk guy, and they're like, they have their stories. But when you're playing PvP games, everyone is fighting together against everyone. It doesn't make any sense. Tracer is in the same team as Widowmaker, and they're killing the robot monk. And it's like Limbo, where it just keeps happening again and again and again.
It just takes this really interesting lore story and then throws it out the fucking window.
Yeah, I can't get into that kind of thing. Like, I would much rather have seen like a Overwatch RPG or third-person shooter adventure game, like anything.
Something single player.
Something where the characters can shine, they can tell their stories, you can experience their stories in-game, versus just, I'm going to play as Tracer and I'm going to kill all my allies and all my enemies every time, every round, because none of it matters.
Yeah.
I don't like that kind of game. I think that League of Legends has that kind of thing to it too.
Well, yeah, because they had the whole cartoon series that we watched.
Yeah,
and that was interesting and lore based, but in the game it means jack shit.
Exactly. So it's tough, man. I think that's just a thing with PvP games. Like, eventually it's like, why are you even bothering making these stories? Like, okay, sure, they're really cool characters, really attractive designs, but it doesn't really mean much. It's pretty shallow. And
especially when you talk about Blizzard, whether it's Overwatch, WoW, or stuff, and they sort of kind of did this. They tried to make the Warcraft movie. Now, I forget, that was like live action, right? Or was that CGI?
It was CGI.
Okay, I don't remember. It's been so long. But, like, I remember they went in a completely different direction than their usual CGI.
Yeah.
And that was the weird part, because everyone loves fucking Blizzard's cutscenes.
Yeah.
They're known as, like, the best in the, I don't know, maybe the world or something, for how, like...
One of the best, yeah.
One of the best. For how just gorgeous and detailed and great they look.
Mm-hmm.
And then they finally get to making a movie, and they do it differently. Like, why couldn't you just make it be the same type of orcs that we've had the entire time? Why did they change it?
I guess they didn't want it to be as cartoony because it's a movie.
Yeah, but the orcs in the cutscenes aren't really cartoony.
I guess they're still more stylized than...
Well, like, this was just gross, so I don't know.
Yeah, it didn't work out too. And they also, I think they changed a little bit of the story too, but whatever.
That was disappointing, because their cinematics are always good, and then they do this shit.
Because they kind of like, they had the...
Then they wonder why it fails.
It was like I think it was the story... I forget if the movie ended with Thrall's birth or Thrall becoming the leader of the Horde.
It's been too long, I don't remember.
But I remember they basically like really shortcut the whole story of Durtan and Orgrim.
But they also had the half-human, half-orc lady.
Yeah.
Forgot her name, and then they kind of tried to rush that in there, and it didn't really seem to make much sense.
That's the thing about movies, too, because they only have like 2 to 3 hours to tell this big story. Maybe nowadays, if like...
Yeah, if they went with like Netflix or something and do like a miniseries.
Yeah, like the Fallout show was fantastic. But imagining them making that same Fallout show in like a 2 to 3 hour timeline, it would not work.
I guess we just have more options these days.
Yeah.
So have you played anything this week, or just Genshin?
Just Genshin, yeah. I wasn't really going to talk about it.
Well, it's either that, because we've already talked about what I played, so...
I mean, I won't get too into it. I guess there's like 1 week left until Natland releases, which is the big new expansion, like a whole new area with a bunch of new characters. And
what's this area based on?
I guess it's loosely based off like South American architecture and environments, but a little bit like Australian. It's kind of hard to tell.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, that's one hell of a mix-up.
It's just like South stuff.
Well, I mean, South America is very different than...
I know, it is.
Australia or
but it's
South
also,
Africa.
It's a fantasy game, so like everything's kind of mixed up together.
Yeah, I guess.
So yeah, we'll see if I get to experience that, because I haven't finished Fontaine's story, and I might need to do that before I'm allowed to see the story of the new area. But I'm sure I can just walk into the new area and like look around and stuff. But there's just so much content. Like I was playing through. I just finished one of the stories in the desert with this character named Jet, Geht, and she's not one of the famous Genshin characters. Like, she's not a playable character, but she like joins you on this adventure. You first meet her and her father. You're helping this academic dude like research the pyramids in the desert and like what happened to the people that lived out here, because it used to be part of the rainforest and now it's desert. And you're going through the story, and you know everything that happens. Should I spoil it? Anyways, eventually you finish that chapter. She loses her father, and it's this whole big thing. And then later on you meet her again. I think in a separate expansion they added another part of the desert. You meet her and like see what she's been up to since that last adventure you went on with her. And she's with this new tribe, and this tribe is like, they're getting kind of infiltrated by the Snezhnayan people, which are like the Russian coded snow people. And like they're causing turmoil and like what's going on. And she's like, I finally found my new tribe, but like there's been betrayals in it. And like you meet this other dude, and he's really cool. He's got this cool hair and stuff. And he's like,
is he a bad guy?
It's really cool because like this is the first time in Genshin where like these characters that you meet, they fight along with you. Not like in other parts of Genshin where like, oh, you can just temporarily
switch between them.
Yeah. In this time they're just there in the field with you. And they're unique characters. They're not like playable characters. So you kind of, at least for me, I grew more attached to her than like almost any of the other characters. Also maybe because her story was interesting and good. And she just was a sweet, fun character. Like she's kind of upbeat, but she's kind of like, you first meet her with her dad. So she's hanging out with her dad and like, oh, you know, he's not very talkative. My dad's kind of serious. And you find out like, you know, what happened to him and his tribe and his wife and why her mother's dead and all this stuff. And you get to know the character, and like, I guess I grew really attached to her. Like she's It's funny when you have a fictional character and you just like, oh god, I want to protect you or whatever.
I mean, people do that stuff on the internet all the time.
She's not one of the main Genshin characters. Like,
so
people
that
probably
makes it better.
couldn't, like, if they look up Genshin Impact, they would like never see her in any of the images because she's like one of the enemies, but basically reskinned. And I guess that's how they got around with it, because like the enemies already have their AI, so she's just using their AI except on your side. So like you're going through the tombs and stuff and fighting, and then you just once in a while you'll be fighting with her and her dad will be there too, and like, or in this later part you'll be fighting with her and this other tribal dude, and it's like it was just very unique. And going through the story of her life and like her parents and what her goals are and the betrayals that she's having to go through again. It's like, oh god. But it was so pretty because at the end of her story, at least from what I know of it, we finally, like, she's like, oh, my parents, you know, they're, I don't know if it's kind of based on Hinduism or something, but there's like this eternal oasis in the desert, and that's where they want to be. We're going to meet up again someday. But it turns out that's an actual real place that you go in the desert, and it's like covered in this freaking hurricane, and you have to like use this djinn.
You can see the people?
No, djinn, you know, like
No, I know, like the genie.
Yeah, there's this little, basically it's like a little bottle with eyeballs in it, and she follows you around and like helps you get through the desert. And like at first it seems like she's bad and maybe she's not great, but eventually you do make your way there because the djinn also has something in there that she wants to go see. And you get to this, you're like, remember, this is in the middle of the desert. And this desert is humongous, by the way, like probably as big as Liyue and Mondstadt put together.
Jesus.
Anyway, we finally get to this eternal oasis, which is like being guarded by this weird machine in the middle of this freaking windstorm. And it's this beautiful oasis, and it's like almost a rainforest underground, and it's completely still. You see like the birds in the sky just still, the fish in the water like still, and it's so pretty.
We got frozen in time.
And like the music in there is so pretty. I know I've said it before, but Genshin Impact, like they make it, it is a really beautiful game when it wants to be. Like, maybe not the first few areas where they were just getting their feet wet, but later on, like, holy cow.
Yeah, because was it Liyue that I was exploring?
The newest parts of Liyue, yeah.
Yeah, that's gorgeous. I'll give them that. I don't really like the gameplay all that much and stuff, but it's pretty.
But yeah, so we end up down there in the Eternal Oasis, and we find out what's been happening. I won't get too into that. But then we, like, Jet's like, well, this is where my parents wanted to be laid to rest. So she puts her dad's axe and her mom's, like, journal down there. And it's just like, oh, God, I love her.
Maybe it was, like, because we had talked about WoW just a few minutes ago. But I was almost thinking, like, oh, you were going to find this oasis in the middle of the desert. And it kind of would have worked how the big crystalline Nagrand worked for the orc elderly or the orc ghosts and stuff, and they were like compelled to go in there.
There was kind of a hint that something like that was happening, because the djinn was like, this is where my old master is resting and I need to go see her. But we get in there and it's nothing, and she's basically like, oh, I was lied to. And it's this whole thing. And like, so there's like these two different stories that are intertwining to get in there, and I don't know, I think it was really well done. It's funny how like some of these side stories are way better than a lot of the main stories in the game.
I wonder if the side story writers can just have more freedom, because maybe it's not as...
Maybe, because like...
I don't know.
Yeah, because they're not the playable characters that people are like spending money on. They can go into more darker places, maybe. I don't know. But yeah, I don't know. It was really good. And I
feel like I know the answer to this, but I'm gonna have to ask it anyways. I know most of the characters you can get or buy, whichever, are female. And I know there's a few characters that at least look like children. Are there, like, any older people, or even just older men?
Yeah.
Because, like, even the guys I have is, like, one is, like, a teenager at most, and the other one's, like, I don't know, 20s.
Yeah, especially in Liyue, there's a lot of, let's just say, people that are not human that live, like, a lot longer or forever, potentially. And some of the gods too, although the gods in this game are mortal, or they can be mortal. But yeah, there's definitely even human older people. But yeah, I think the split is like 35 to 40% of them are guys and the rest are girls.
Because you were talking about like the dad archaeologist, and I was thinking of like an archaeologist father that has
Well,
like, the glasses and
no.
gray hair or something?
Her and her dad are like these desert tribal people. They were basically hired by this scholar to protect them and guide them through the desert, because the scholar was from like the academia, which is in Sumeru in the rainforest area. So they're like, oh, I want to study what's up with these pyramids and stuff. So they hired these local people to help guide them. And like, yeah, you go through the story and it's like you find out what the father's backstory, what tribe he was from, what he went through, what happened to his wife, and like why he's bringing up his daughter in the way that he is, and all this stuff. And it was really good. And it's funny because like the scholar guy at first was like, oh, you freaking desert people are untrustworthy. It's crazy.
Politics stuff almost.
Yeah. But like eventually he's like, oh, they, because you're questing with them for so long, like even he's like softening up and he's like, oh, okay, I can see why you're doing this. And it's really well done, which is, I mean, it's good.
Now the Russian coded snow people, are they also like under their own like archon, right?
Yes.
Does their archon know what they're doing? Does their archon is happy with them being
as
like
far
that?
as I know? Probably. I mean, we haven't been to their. That's probably going to be the next update, probably next year or whatever. It'll be Shnaya finally, but we don't really know exactly fully what their plans are. But yeah,
I mean, I guess not all gods are going to be good gods, but yeesh.
That's the thing. Like, yeah, I mean, if you had made it into the Japanese area in Azuma, the god there you find. She's basically, they call her the Raiden Shogun, so like the lightning shogun, and she rules that place with an iron fist. It's basically like old Japan where people were not allowed in or out. Yeesh. And not only that, but like people who with power were like put down. Like, in this game, basically there's normal people and then there's your characters who have these visions. Sometimes something amazing will happen in their life and they prove themselves to the gods, and the gods will give them this vision, which lets them control the elemental powers attached to it. So like if somebody has a fire vision, that means they can use like some fire elemental magic or whatever, right? Basically in Inazuma, anybody with one of those, like the Raiden Shogun was like, we're going to confiscate that. You're not allowed to have that. And there's like this whole story of like the warring clans and stuff, and like that archon was not good.
That's weird.
And like you have to figure out why and what happened, and like if you can fix it, and like what are the influences, and like the false visions. I don't think you've run into that yet.
No.
Again, some people were chosen by the gods and given these powers, and those are like the playable characters, but also some other ones. And then some people were like, this is fucked. We want to be able to use that too. And some nations have made their own like false ones, but that has like negative effects on people. Yeah, figures. So you haven't run into a lot of them obviously, but a lot of the Shishnai and Fatui people are like, they use those, but it fucks them up. Weird. So it's, yeah.
Okay, one quick thing before we leave, I guess, but
this was not supposed to be a Genshin Impact discussion, but sure.
Are they making these false vision things or false powers, like, is it like a sciencey way done, or are they using like medicinal potions, like nature mixing or something?
I guess you could say it's kind of like fantasy sciencey stuff. This world is very strange with its technology, because when you first play it feels very fantasy. Like Mondstadt is just like some fantasy RPG land. There's like no technology, but eventually you find out, oh, Sumeru has some sort of technology, and Fontaine has freaking clockwork robots. And yeah, it's kind of all over the place, but it is more sciencey than it is magic-y, their visions that they make. Anyway, yeah, I love that game. God, it has problems. It has so many problems, but I love it.
Mostly monetary problems?
Well, I don't know. I haven't paid a dime. I think my thing is just like the thing that killed it for you, having to like deal with like the weird level up systems. Yeah. It's like, I kind of wish that wasn't like, on one hand, it's nice that like, oh, the levels up are tied more to these books than they are to just random XP that you kill monsters with. Because at least that way, if you get a new character, you can just like level them up instantly to catch them up, right? I guess. But... So there's that benefit, but then there's also having to level up your artifacts and your weapons and all that stuff, and just like... I wish it wasn't like that. And then like the talents too. It's just kind of...
I think the weird thing about the level up system is using those books is like, it's so much tied to just finding treasure chests. Yeah. It's weird.
And quests. Yeah.
Ugh, I don't like it.
Yeah. If I could remake this game, there was definitely things that I would change, and that is one of them. Like how level ups and stuff like that work. But that's just that style of game for you, I guess.
Yeah. Well, maybe this next week we can get you to...
Next week I have something very important.
Oh.
Well, it's not important because we're talking about video games. It's not important. But sure, why not? Give it a hint. Think about your favorite mods in video games.
Okay.
And yeah, just what are some of your favorite mods? Some of the bigger ones, some of the smaller ones, your experience with mods, because next week's episode is going to be all about mods.
Okay.
Alrighty?
Okay, sounds good.
Okay. Well, see you next week then.
Bye.
Bye-bye.